Hi everyone, Flaming Footy here and welcome back to a new YouTube video on the channel. And today guys, here we are to continue my AFL 2023 3-game match reviews. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing the first 3 games of round 21, and those games were the Western Bulldogs versus Richmond, Essendon versus West Coast, and Adelaide versus Gold Coast. A huge stakes Friday night it was. The Western Bulldogs and the Tigers at Marvel Stadium, venue which the Tigers have had their struggles at in the past, and they continue their Marvel Stadium struggles are still apparent and continuing. The Dogs win this one comfortably by 55 points in a bit of a blowout in the end. Western Bulldogs 19-12, 126 to the Tigers, 10-11, 70 on the Dogs win by 55, and the winner was going to find themselves inside the top 8. The loser probably would find themselves out of the top 8 by the end of the round, and in the end it was a really good performance from the Dogs. Off the back of a 9-2 first term, and the game was pretty much over at quarter time. In quarter 2, the margin didn't really do a lot. The Tigers were the better of the sides, and then the third quarter, a 4-2 quarter, just had already won the game for the Western Bulldogs, and then in the final quarter, 3-3, so a relatively even final term. Got to play stats now. Marcus Bontempelli was huge, 151 fantasy, 3 goals, 6 marks, 9 tackles. He was amazing. 133 fantasy for Liberatore, 131 for English, 107 for Treloar and Dale. Goals behind us, 5 goals for Hugo Hagen, including I think it was 3 or 4 goals in the first term. He was electric. 3 goals for Norton, Revolt, Bontempelli, 2 for Lobb, West, Daniel and Ross. Disposals now, 32 for Bontempelli, 32 for Treloar, 31 for Libert, 30 for Dale, 25 for Taranto and Short. Marks, 8 for English and Nick Vlosten, 7 for Revolt, Bolter and Short. Tackles, 12 for Liberatore, 9 for Bontempelli, 7 for English and Taranto. Hitouts, 32 for Nankervis, 29 for English, 22 for Soldo, 5 for Lobb. Team stats now was a comfortable inside 50 win there for the Western Bulldogs, 64-46. They won centre clearances 16-14, but the Tigers did win stoppage clearances. They won contested and uncontested footy as well. They won marks 87-76, marks inside 50, 18-10 and contested marks. Led for the whole game, out tackled them by 20. Richmond, they did make a couple of really interesting choices, leaving Martin and Cotran out of the team, but in the end, it is a huge win here for 55 by 55 points for the Western Bulldogs in a final shaping fixture. Saturday afternoon, first game earlier today started with Essendon and the West Coast Eagles at Marvel Stadium, and Essendon won by 1 point. Their season was hanging on this result, and they've got North Melbourne next week, but look, it's going to have to take Essendon's very best efforts to get them into finals from here. But though West Coast, brilliant performance as well. 10-13 Essendon to 11-6 West Coast, 73-72 were the final scores. Essendon win by a point, and it was a very good performance from West Coast. They did find themselves almost out of it in that third quarter, but the ability to come back was really good. And after last week, a win against North Melbourne in Perth, things have just started to gel. When Essendon do give sides chances, they've been reported to have been playing a basketball-style brand of football throughout this year. It's their turn, and then it's your turn. So that's what did give Essendon. That's what gave the West Coast Eagles some really good chances in this game. And look, first term, Essendon did miss some chances, but West Coast were hanging in the game, and their problem throughout the year has been letting really poor starts. They've let games slip in the opening quarter, but they hung around in this one, and then the second quarter they started off well. Essendon did get going though late in the term. They ended up kicking 6-2 in that term. In the third quarter though, only the 1 goal for Essendon, 2 for West Coast. They find themselves down by about 15 or about 17 at 3-quarter time, and then the final quarter, 2-5, their best quarter of the game, and it's nearly enough to see them win, but in the last minute, their defence just doesn't quite go to plan, and it gets out the back, and the Bombers get a goal to put them in front by a point, and they end up winning it. But a very good effort here from West Coast, though. They're definitely going to be able to contend with a couple of other teams towards the end of the year as well, I reckon. They're probably going to have some decent games. And Essendon, well, look, it wasn't their greatest performance. 128 fantasy for Merritt, 113 for Parrish and Hine, 112 for Kelly, 106 for Witherden, 103 for Heppel, 100 for Redmond. 103 for Heppel, 100 for Redmond, 106 for Witherden. 5 goals, 3 for Langford. He was huge. He was the reason why they won this game, Essendon. 2 goals for Cripps, Allen, Darling and Marrick. So it was a bit more of a variation this time for goals for the Eagles. 33 disposals for Parrish, 31 for Hine, 30 for Kelly, 29 for Merritt and Duggan, 24 for Hunt. We'll go to marks now. 11 for Cole, 10 for Kelly, 9 for Witherden, 8 for Rotham. So those are the Eagles players. They did a really good job with the marks. 8 tackles for Merritt, 6 for Heppel, 5 for O'Neill and Edwards. 33 hit-outs for Phillips, 19 for Bryan, 12 for Bailey Williams, 1 for Jared Williams. We've got a team stats now, whereas the Bombers that won inside 50s by 4, West Coast had 51 inside 50s compared to the Bombers 55, so they were still getting plenty of chances. But again, though, Essendon's game style does allow the opposition to have some chances. Hit-outs, West Coast got beaten in that area. Same with clearances. 10-9 centre clearances. They did match them there. 28-20 stoppage clearances, though. Essendon comfortably won in contested footy. The Eagles won in uncontested footy, though. They won in marks as well, but marks inside 50 was Essendon 14-8 and then 12-3 contested marks as well. So you can still see a couple of little difficult areas for the Eagles, but overall they did really match up quite well with them. The Bombers did lead for most of the game. They out-tackled West Coast 60-46, took way more bounces as well. But in the end, though, a very, very, very good performance here from West Coast is nearly enough to cause a huge upset, because this is a brilliant performance away from home for West Coast. Second Saturday afternoon game was Adelaide and Gold Coast at the Adelaide Oval. Now, this one was definitely an elimination final kind of a game. The loser will not be featuring in September this year, and the loser was Gold Coast. Gold Coast are officially not going to be making finals this year. It would literally take a literal miracle for them to do it, but yeah, it is pretty much season over for them now. And Adelaide, they keep their season alive. They keep their finals hopes alive in a decent win, 28 points, 13-11-89 Adelaide to 9-7-61 Gold Coast, but Gold Coast were testing at times, and Adelaide just couldn't quite stand up when it mattered. But in the end, though, when it did matter late in the game, they did stand up, and they built themselves out to a really nice lead early on in the game, 5-0 in the opening term, 3 more, so it was 3 goals apiece in that second term. And then the third quarter, Adelaide kicked 7 behinds. Gold Coast get 3 goals. They did win the quarter. They were, I mean, it's hard to say whether they were the better side or not, because they did have more scoreboard impact, but Adelaide still did kick 7 behinds and still had their chances. So if they had kicked a little bit straighter, this could have been a really big win for Adelaide. It has been a venue which has troubled Gold Coast in their history. They've never won they've never won at the Adelaide Oval in their history. And then the final quarter, 5-3, just solidifies the win for Adelaide, and it gives them a little bit more of a grasp, potentially on a spot in the top 8, but it will be hinging on a couple of games, including the Geelong and Port Adelaide game, which will be massive for their finals hopes. But anyway, though, back to this game, it was definitely that third quarter where Gold Coast did have a good opportunity to come, especially when Adelaide weren't taking their chances. 124 fancy for Hinge, who had a day out, 121 for Fogarty, 120 for Crouch, 108 for Witts, 102 for Laird, 99 for Smith, 98 for Dawson. 3 goals for Fogarty, 3 for McAdam, 2 for Walker, Casbolt, King, and Lukosius. Disposals, 31 for Crouch and Hinge. As I said, Hinge had a really good day as well. 7 marks, 4 tackles as well. 4 Mitch Hinge, 27 for Flanders, 26 for Smith, 25 for Atkins, 24 for Laird, 23 for Dawson. So we're going back to the disposals there. 10 marks for Fogarty, 9 for Ball Ace, who looked really good on debut. 8 for Smith, Power, and Andrew. 7 for Hinge and Lukosius. Tackles, 10 for Rory Laird, 8 for Dawson and Fogarty, as well as Farah. Hit-outs, 41 for O'Brien, 39 for Witts. It was a very interesting ruck battle throughout the day. 3 for Thilthorpe, 2 for Casbolt, 1 for Walker. Team stats now, and it was the inside 50s that Adelaide won in 57-45 by 12 there. They also won in clearances comfortably, 46-29 overall clearances, 13-7 centre clearances, and 33-22 stoppage clearances. They also won contested and uncontested footy as well. They won marks, but they were tipping the ball around a little bit later on in the game to take some time to clock. 13-8 marks inside 50, 18-13 contested marks as well, all in favour of Adelaide, led for most of the game. Out-tackled Gold Coast by 9 in a huge tackle number, by the way, 90-81. Laid more tackles inside their attacking 50 as well. But look, it's a season-saving win for the Adelaide Crows. Finals are still alive for them. Half-time, the MCG between Hawthorn and Collingwood. It's Hawthorn by 11 at the moment, and they got out to pretty much about a 5-goal lead at one stage in the game, so it's been very interesting. This could be huge if Hawthorn were to claim the upset win over Collingwood. So, of course, still a huge result to be played out there. Saturday night, 2 huge games, Geelong and Port Adelaide being the bigger one, I reckon, in my opinion. This game is going to have significant ladder positions and tweaks. Not necessarily if Port Adelaide win, but it would try and keep them in clear second again. And then if Geelong win, well, then that'll definitely be hurting some of the teams like Richmond and Sydney and Adelaide for finals chances. And of course, as I did just mention, Sydney. It is the Sydney Derby tonight as well, the Giants and the Swans at Giants Stadium. That is going to be a huge clash as well, especially if Sydney were to get the win. How massive that would change and shake things up again. Sunday's footy action, North Melbourne and Melbourne at Blundstone Arena kicks off the day. Clarko is making his returning to coaching in that game. He'd have to do something really special to get North Melbourne over the line, but there you go. St Kilda and Carlton is going to be a huge matchup, and that's going to have huge finals ramifications on the line there as well. And then Fremantle and Brisbane finishes off the round in Perth. We go to the ladder now, and if the live ladder is turned on, it's not going to do anything anyway. It'll just take a bit of percentage off Collingwood and lift Hawthorn up. So we'll leave that on. But yeah, as I did say, Port Adelaide do have a really big opportunity tonight, and they have to take it because Melbourne and Brisbane are the favourites to win this round. Melbourne will probably easily get the win, and Brisbane you'd be thinking will win anyway, so they need this win, Port Adelaide. They need it more than ever. Otherwise, they could be, if they lose, they could be in fourth by the end of the round. That is not where they'd want to be. The Western Bulldogs find themselves in fifth at the moment, awaiting St Kilda's result. And if St Kilda do win, there's probably a good chance they'll get into finals, I reckon. So they're going to have to beat a really good side in order to do so, though. And the Giants, if they win, they'll go up into fifth. But if they lose, they'll stay in seventh. Now, Carlton, their result is still waiting as well. They can go up as high as fifth if they win as well. Adelaide, they've already played, so have Essendon, and they've jumped up into 9th and 10th. Of course, still awaiting the results of Geelong and Sydney, though they can jump, skip, and go up into the top 8, and again, depending on Carlton's result, but there's a good chance there's only going to be one spot in the 8. But then again, though, if Carlton do lose, then that'll... but then if Carlton do win, that'll change things up again. But yeah, very interesting stuff, because if Carlton do win, there is no spot in the 8 available for Geelong and Sydney. Richmond are in 13th, and things are getting hard for them. Gold Coast, pretty much season over, and then same for Freo, and then, of course, again, down towards this bottom spectrum, can play spoiler. But anyway, though, that's going to wrap up today's 3-game match reviews. Of course, this is going to be a very interesting game, but yeah, we've got some huge games. Then next round, that Collingwood-Geelong game on Friday night is going to be huge. North and Essendon might be a little bit more interesting than we all think. Sydney-Gold Coast, still such a huge game. Brisbane-Adelaide will be a huge game as well. Carlton-Melbourne, the Western Derby, Hawthorn-Dogs, St Kilda-Richmond, that's going to be a massive game. And also Port Adelaide and the Giants. So got some big games next round as well. But anyway, though, first 3 games of round 21 are done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. See you guys next time on the channel. Thank you guys so much. Bye everyone. Flame Footy out.